The Valari homeworld once shone like a blue crystal in the center of their peaceful star system. For thousands of years they lived in harmony, building gardens that floated in the air and cities that glowed gently through the night. But all of that peace ended the moment the Draven arrived. The Draven were a species known across the galaxy as planet burners. They traveled in black metal warships shaped like blades, slicing through star systems and leaving only smoke behind. No one reasoned with them, no one negotiated with them. They only took, destroyed, and moved to the next target on a quiet evening. When the Valari moons were rising together, the first Draven ships appeared in orbit. The sky, once calm, became red with warning lights and panic sirens. Valari citizens ran through streets of glowing stone, screaming for shelter as the Draven ships opened fire. Buildings shook, sky bridges cracked, and ancient gardens fell from the sky like burning leaves in the Valari High Tower. The Council of Elders gathered around a glowing communication crystal. Their hands trembled, their voices cracked. But their hope remained that someone, anyone, would answer their cry for help. Elder Sira, the oldest among them, activated the Galactic SOS beacon. A deep hum filled the chamber as a bright pulse shot upward and into space. The message spread across star systems in seconds. Valari under attack, Draven invasion. We request help from any friendly species. The Valari had allies, or so they believed. They had signed treaties with great empires and peaceful coalitions. Surely someone would answer. Surely someone would not let them die alone. But hours passed, then more hours, and still the galaxy stayed silent. In distant territories, the SOS signal was received. But the leaders who saw it whispered among themselves with cold logic. The Draven are too dangerous. Helping the Valari will bring the Draven to our borders. We cannot risk our cities. We cannot risk our armies. We must ignore this call. The Valari were shocked when no reply arrived. Their scientists ran checks on the beacon, thinking maybe it malfunctioned, but the device was fine. The galaxy simply refused to help outside. The Draven soldiers landed on the surface with mechanical boots that crushed the crystal streets. Their armor was black and sharp, their eyes red like living fire. Valari civilians hid inside broken buildings as explosions thundered through the night. Families held each other close, wondering if this would be their final sunrise. In the high tower, Elder Sira spoke with a broken voice. "No one is coming," she whispered. "The galaxy has abandoned us." A young Valari commander named Reth stepped forward with clenched fists. "But the signal is still transmitting." "Elder," he said, "it must reach someone." "Even if they are far away?" Sira nodded slowly, though hope faded in her heart. She looked out the window at the burning city. The sky was no longer blue. It was ash gray. Her people's songs were gone, replaced only by the roar of Draven engines. As night turned into another burning day, Valari defense ships attempted one last escape. They flew upward through clouds of smoke, trying to break free of the Draven blockade. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. One by one, their ships exploded in helpless bursts of blue flame. Commander Reth watched the destruction with shaking hands. "They are slaughtering us," he whispered. "We cannot even reach open space inside the command room." The SOS beacon pulsed again, a final call into the void. A final hope, a final cry. "Please, someone help us." And then, something changed. A sensor operator suddenly gasped. She pointed at her glowing screen, her voice trembling. "Commander, an unknown fleet just entered our system." The room fell silent. For a moment, everyone forgot to breathe. Unknown fleets could mean anything. More enemies, more invaders, more destruction. But then the data expanded on the screen. The ships were not huge like the Draven warships. They were smaller, faster, moving like hunting animals through space. Commander Reth narrowed his eyes. "What species has ships that move like this?" he whispered. The operator swallowed hard as she zoomed in on the digital code. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It is a Deathworlder ID code." The whole room froze in shock. Deathworlders were not known for diplomacy or peace. They were known for surviving worlds so dangerous most species fainted at the thought. And only one species in the galaxy carried that title with pride. The operator looked at Reth and spoke the name that sent chills through the command center. "Humans," she whispered. "Humanity has arrived." The last screen flickered, showing dozens of human warships slicing through space like silver predators. Their engines burned bright, their formations tight, their speed impossible for peaceful species. Commander Reth felt hope, real hope. For the first time since the invasion began, the part ended with him whispering a single line, "A species that everyone fears came to save us." *. The Valari skies were burning when the human fleet made its first appearance. To the terrified Valari citizens below, the Draven ships seemed unstoppable, like dark gods hovering in their sky. But then, cutting through the clouds like falling stars, the human ships arrived with a roar that shook the entire atmosphere. On the main Valari defense screen, the unknown fleet expanded into full view. Dozens of human destroyers and frigates formed a tight, spear-shaped formation. Their hulls were covered with battle scars from past wars. Their engines glowed with a bright white fire that Valari technology could not even understand. Commander Reth leaned toward the display. Barely believing his own eyes, he had heard stories about humans. Stories whispered in military academies, stories told by travelers who came from the edge of civilized space, stories of a species born on a death world full of storms, predators and impossible climates, stories of warriors who never ran from a fight, even when logic said they should. But seeing them arrive in person felt unreal, as if the universe itself had sent them. The Draven commander also noticed the human arrival inside his flagship. He growled in frustration and activated his broadcast channel. His deep mechanical voice echoed through every ship in the system. "Unknown fleet. This is Draven Command. You have entered a restricted war zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed for a moment." The human fleet said nothing. Their ships drifted calmly through the blackness of space. Like silent hunters choosing their target, Valari citizens watched from broken rooftops. Holding their breath, Elder Sira whispered in fear. "What will the humans do?" Then a single human transmission came through. Cold, clear, confident. "Draven forces, this is Captain Mira Hale of Earth's Death World Command. You are attacking civilians. Stand down." Mira's voice was calm, but beneath it was the unmistakable edge of a warrior who had seen too many battles. The Draven ships reacted with laughter, cruel, echoing laughter that bounced through the communication network. The Draven commander replied, "You dare challenge us? Human, your small fleet will burn like the Valari cities." Captain Mira did not shout back. She did not argue. Her answer came like a blade sliding from its sheath. "Death Worlders, do not run. Final warning." Those words hung in the galactic silence like lightning ready to strike. The Draven commander snarled, "Fire!" Hundreds of red plasma bolts shot toward the human fleet. The sky lit up with burning trails, explosions thundered across the upper atmosphere. Valari citizens screamed and covered their ears. Commander Reth whispered, "They are firing on humans first." But when the smoke cleared, the Valari saw something astonishing. Most of the human ships were untouched. Not because they had shields stronger than the Draven, not because they had magic, but because they moved fast. Impossibly fast. Dodging energy blasts with precision no peaceful species could match. Human pilots swung their ships sideways, cut through plasma waves, and twisted into tight spirals that made even Valari soldiers dizzy just watching them. It was like watching predators dance in a storm. Then Captain Mira gave the command. Her voice was calm. "Return fire." The human destroyers opened fire with blue kinetic cannons that ripped through Draven ships like metal paper. Every shot was precise. Every hit landed exactly where the Draven armor was weakest. Human warships dove downward, racing toward the Draven blockade with a speed the Valari sensors struggled to track. Valari citizens watched in awe as the first Draven battleship exploded. A massive ball of red flame expanding across the sky. Thunder rolled across the land, shaking mountains and seas. Commander Reth stared at the screen. "Speechless, these humans," he whispered. "They fight like they have nothing to lose." Captain Mira's flagship, the Valiant, led the charge. Its hull glowed with the reflection of burning Draven ships. Its engines roared like beasts of ancient Earth inside the ship. Human soldiers prepared for battle with calm expressions. They nodded to each other, tightened their armor, checked their weapons, as if they were about to walk into a normal working day. One soldier joked, "Another day, another alien bully," another laughed. "Let's show them why Earth is called a death world, back in orbit." Human ships cut through Draven formations with terrifying efficiency. They didn't hesitate. They didn't slow down. They fought as if the Valari homeworld was their own home under attack. Within minutes, 5 Draven ships were destroyed. 3 disabled, 2 forced to retreat. The Draven commander roared in disbelief. How can a death world species fight this well? These humans are insane. Asterisk. Asterisk. But Captain Myra simply answered, "You attacked the innocent. You made your choice," as the battle continued. The human fleet formed a protective wall over the Valari capital. The once helpless city now had guardians. Guardians who fought with fire, steel, and unbreakable courage. Elder Sira watched the sky with tears in her eyes. She whispered softly, "They came. They truly came." Commander Reth stood beside her, still shaken by the sight of humans fighting like living storms. "Why?" he asked. "Why would humans risk everything for us?" Sira placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and answered, "Because we called for help, and humans." Humans answer. The part ends with the human fleet forming a tight formation, preparing to descend to the surface. Captain Mira's voice echoes across the Valari system, calm and unshaken. "Valari people, hold on. Earth stands with you now." The human ships broke through the clouds like falling stars. Their engines lit the Valari sky with bright white fire. For the first time since the invasion began, the Valari people looked upward, not with fear but with hope. Human landing craft descended into the ruined capital. Dust and smoke rose from the pavement as the metal ships gently touched the ground. Valari civilians watched from behind broken walls and shattered windows. Their bodies shaking, their eyes wide, unsure if these new arrivals were saviors or another threat. The landing ramp opened with a loud hiss. Heavy footsteps echoed from inside the craft. And from the thick shadows stepped the first human soldier. He was tall, even by human standards, wearing heavy black armor shaped to resist bullets, fire, and alien weapons. His face was covered by a visor that glowed faint blue. His movements were strong, calm, controlled, like someone who had walked through war many times before. Valari children gasped in fear. Some adults stumbled backward. They had never seen a species that looked so powerful, so heavy, so dangerous. Then something unexpected happened. The human soldier slowly removed his helmet, revealing a warm face, steady eyes, and a calm expression. His brown hair blew gently in the hot wind. He knelt down, placing his helmet on the ground, and he spoke in a soft voice. "You're safe now." The Valari citizens stared in disbelief. They had expected monsters. Instead, they found protectors. Captain Mira Hale herself stepped out of the second landing craft. Her armor was marked with the sigil of Earth's Death World Command. She scanned the ruined city with sharp eyes, assessing everything: the collapsed buildings, the burning skies, the frightened civilians, and the lingering Draven patrols. Her voice was firm yet calm as she spoke to her soldiers. "Secure the area. No one harms these people while we're here." Human soldiers spread out like a wave of shields, moving with speed and discipline. They covered alleyways, rooftops, and broken streets. Valari watched in awe as the humans formed tight defense lines. It was like watching a living wall of iron rise around them. One small Valari girl, her silver hair covered in dust, hid behind a broken pillar. She clutched a glowing crystal toy of famous Valari comfort stone close to her chest. The toy flickered weakly, its light fading from fear and damage. A human soldier noticed her shaking in the shadows. He walked slowly toward her, kneeling to make himself small. He extended a gloved hand and said gently, "It's okay. No one will hurt you." The little girl hesitated. But then something inside her trusted this giant stranger. She stepped forward and placed her tiny hand in his large one. Her fingers barely reached around one of his. The soldier gave her a soft smile and tapped the crystal toy. The glowing stone flickered back to life with a bright light. The girl gasped and hugged him as tightly as she could. "You fixed it," she whispered. "Thank you." The Valari elders watched this moment from a distance, tears forming in their eyes for the first time in days. They felt warmth instead of fear. Captain Mira walked over to them, her boots leaving deep prints in the crystal dust. Elder Sira stepped forward and bowed her head respectfully. "You came," she said with a trembling voice. No one else answered our call. Mira placed a hand over her chest. "The human sign of respect." "You asked for help," she replied softly. "So we came." Commander Reth approached next. "Still struggling to understand this species?" "Why risk so much?" he asked. "You don't owe us anything," Mira looked at the burning horizon, her jaw tightening. "On Earth," she said, "we learned long ago that if you don't help others when they're weak, no one will help you when you're weak. It's how humans survive." Reth nodded slowly, beginning to understand why humans had survived on a death world for thousands of years. But before the moment could become peaceful, the ground suddenly vibrated. A loud rumble echoed across the destroyed capital. Draven drones swarmed through the air, their wings buzzing like angry metal insects. They opened fire on the streets below, sending civilians running for cover again. Captain Myra didn't flinch. She raised her hand and shouted, "Shields up!" Human soldiers activated kinetic shields, forming a glowing blue barrier that protected the Valari behind them. Plasma bolts crashed against the shields, sending sparks in every direction, but the humans held steady, their boots digging into the ground. Refusing to move, Mira tapped her cum device. "Valiant command," she said. "Target the drones." The human flagship responded instantly, high above the atmosphere. The ECS Valiant opened its underside panels and fired a storm of guided missiles. The missiles streaked through the sky like glowing arrows, leaving behind long white trails. A second later, they hit the drone swarm. The explosion lit the sky like a new sunrise. Valari civilians cheered as the metal fragments rained harmlessly onto rooftops. Commander Reth stared in awe. "These humans," he whispered. "They fight like storms." Captain Myra lowered her arm and turned to Elder Sira. "This is only the beginning," she warned. "The Draven will bring reinforcements." Sira's voice trembled. "How many?" Mira's face hardened as she checked her wrist display. Her eyes narrowed a lot, she said. "A full fleet is entering your star system right now," the Valari leaders gasped. Their world had already suffered too much, but Myra stood tall, her eyes burning with fearless determination. "Don't lose hope," she said. "The Death Worlders are here. We will not let your world fall." The part ends as all Valari sensors pick up a massive signal. A gigantic Draven reinforcement armada entering the system, bigger than anything seen before. The sky darkens again, and Mira whispers, "Prepare the defenses. The real battle starts now." The Valari sky turned dark again as the Draven reinforcements arrived. Their massive armada dropped out of hyperspace like a wall of metal giants. Warships stretched across the horizon, their engines glowing like burning blood. It felt as if the night itself had taken shape and descended on the Valari homeworld. Valari citizens stared upward in terror. They had already suffered too much. Their cities lay in ruins, their people scattered, their defenses broken, and now the enemy returned in numbers far greater than before. The Draven commander, furious after his earlier losses, activated a system-wide broadcast. His voice thundered from every speaker, every radio, every communication crystal. "Humans," he roared, "you dare challenge the Draven Empire again, this time you will die inside the X-Valiant." Captain Mira Hale watched the incoming fleet with sharp, unblinking eyes. Behind her stood rows of human officers, their faces steady, their hearts calm. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing a force that should have broken any peaceful species in minutes. But humans were not peaceful. They were Death World survivors. They never ran, they never surrendered, and they never ignored a call for help. Myra placed her hands on the control table. Her voice echoed across all human ships. "Death World Command," she said calmly. "This is not just a battle. This is a message today. The galaxy learns what it means when humans answer an SOS. Her officers nodded. Their eyes filled with fire moments later. Alarms sounded as the Draven fleet launched the first attack. A wave of plasma torpedoes, hundreds of them, streaked toward the human ships. The sky became a river of red flames. "Brace," Myra ordered. Human ships twisted sharply. Performing maneuvers that defied physics, Valari sensors struggled to track their movements. Human destroyers slipped through the incoming torpedoes with insane precision. Some torpedoes passed so close, they left scorch marks on the hulls. The Draven commander snarled in disbelief. "What species moves like that?" he growled. "These humans are reckless." But he hadn't seen anything yet. Captain Mira raised her hand. "Valiant fleet," she commanded. "Execute Operation Iron Spear in an instant." The human formation tightened. Their ships aligned into a sharp arrow shape. At the tip was the ECS Valiant, glowing with raw energy. The engines roared louder than before, shaking the sky itself. Then the human fleet charged, straight into the heart of the Draven Armada. No hesitation, no fear, only raw human determination. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Valari spectators watched from the surface in stunned silence. They had never seen such madness or such bravery. The Draven fleet opened fire again, but the humans didn't stop. They dove through explosions. Their ships rolled through plasma storms. Human pilots gritted their teeth, sweat dripping down their brows as they forced their ships to perform extreme death-world maneuvers. "Target their engines," Mira commanded. Kinetic rounds only. Human cannons unleashed a storm of blue projectiles. Unlike energy weapons, these rounds used raw force. They tore through Draven armor like meteors smashing through glass. The first Draven cruiser exploded. A deep boom echoed across the sky. Fire filled the darkness. Valari citizens cheered from the surface. They'd never seen the Draven lose a ship so fast. But the Draven still had overwhelming numbers. Thousands of fighters swarmed the human fleet. Dozens of heavy battleships surrounded the Valiant. The Valari gasped. "They are surrounding the humans. They want to crush them." But Mira just smiled. A small, dangerous smile. The smile of someone who had walked through too many storms to fear another. "Perfect," she said. "Exactly where we want them." She tapped her command console. "Activate the Earth gravity weapon." Valari commanders looked at each other in confusion. Earth gravity weapon. What was that, suddenly? The ECS Valiant released a deep rumble. Panels opened along its hull, glowing with bright blue energy. A pulse of invisible force erupted outward. It wasn't a laser, it wasn't a missile, it was controlled gravitational pressure. A technology only humans used, because no other species dared experiment with gravity itself. The Draven ships nearest the Valiant jerked violently. Their hulls bent inward, as if crushed by an unseen fist. Several ships collapsed entirely, crumpling like empty cans under a boot. Valari commanders gasped in disbelief. What kind of weapon is that? How does a peaceful species even build such a thing? Commander Reth swallowed hard and whispered, "Humans aren't peaceful. They just choose peace." But the battle wasn't over. Human ships dashed through the chaos. Boarding teams launched from the Valiant's Maul craft carrying armored soldiers equipped with magnetic boots and razor rifles. They slammed into Draven battleships like arrows. Human soldiers stormed inside, moving like unstoppable storm winds through the corridors. Draven warriors tried to fight back, but humans fought with terrifying efficiency. Every strike precise, every movement controlled. Inside one Draven ship, a human soldier smashed through a metal door and shouted, "For the Valari," before unleashing a burst of kinetic rounds that cleared the hallway. Back outside, the sky turned bright again as another Draven warship exploded. Then another, then two more, each blast shaking the air like thunder from ancient gods. The Draven commander stared at his screens in horror. His massive reinforcements, his powerful fleet, all falling apart. Destroyed not by a huge empire, not by a coalition of species, but by a single death-world species with a small fleet and insane courage? No, he growled. "This is impossible. These creatures should not exist, but humans existed. And humans did not retreat." Captain Mira gave her final order. "Target the flagship." End this, the Valiant charged forward. Engines burning like a falling sun, human ships unleashed all remaining firepower in a combined blast. The Draven flagship ruptured from the force, collapsing in a massive explosion that lit the entire system. Every Valari citizen saw it. Every mountain shook, every sea rippled, and every heart finally felt hope. The Draven fleet broke apart. Some fled, some surrendered. Some drifted, disabled and burning, for the first time in recorded history. The Draven were defeated, not by numbers, not by advanced alien empires, but by Deathworld humans who fought like unstoppable storms. The battle was over, and the galaxy would never forget what it had just witnessed. The Draven flagship burned like a dying sun in the sky. The explosion spread across the clouds in a wave of red and gold. Valari citizens watched in stunned silence as the last great symbol of the Draven Empire shattered. For a moment the world stood still, as if the entire planet held its breath. Then the cheering began, small at first, but growing louder and louder until the sound rolled through the ruined capital like a rising storm of hope. Children who once hid in fear now danced on the broken roads. Families hugged each other tightly. Soldiers dropped to their knees with tears in their eyes. The Valari had survived, against all logic. Against all odds, they had lived, and humanity had been the reason why. Human soldiers walked through the streets, offering water, medical kits, and comforting words. Their armor was scorched, their helmets dented, their faces tired. But their eyes carried the calm fire of people who never gave up. Wherever the humans walked, Valari followed with gratitude and awe. Captain Myra Hale stepped down from the landing craft and looked at the wounded city. Towers still burned, streets were broken, but the world was alive, and that meant everything. Elder Sira approached her, leaning on her crystal staff. She bowed her head, tears falling freely. "Captain Mira," she whispered, "you saved our world." Mira shook her head gently. "Your people saved yourselves," she replied. "We just helped you stand again." Behind them, a group of Valari children gathered. The little silver-haired girl from earlier ran forward and hugged Mira's leg tightly. "Don't go," she said, her voice trembling. Mira knelt down and brushed dust from the child's hair. "We're not leaving yet," she said softly. "We have work to do," and the humans did exactly that. They cleared debris from streets, pulled survivors from collapsed buildings, repaired broken energy lines, distributed food from their own supplies. Even their medics treated Valari wounded before treating their own. It shocked the Valari soldiers. Commander Reth watched a human medic, carefully patching a Valari warrior's wounds. He spoke with confusion. "Your people fight like storms," he said. "But you help like healers." The human medic smiled calmly. "Storms end," he replied, "but kindness lasts for 3 days." Humans worked tirelessly beside the Valari. Together, they rebuilt communication towers, repaired defense lines, and cleared dangerous areas. The Valari learned human jokes, human songs, and even some human combat drills, which terrified them but also impressed them deeply. On the 4th day, a new message spread across the Valari star system. A transmission broadcast on every channel, every screen, every speaker. It was Elder Sira's voice. "Strong, proud, filled with emotion, people of the Valari," she said. "We were abandoned by the galaxy, but one species heard our cries. Humans came, and they stood between us and death." As she spoke, images appeared of human ships fighting through the Draven blockade, of human soldiers shielding Valari families under their kinetic barriers, of Captain Myra leading her fleet against impossible odds. Elder Sira continued, "We will never forget what they did for us, and today, the Valari declare humanity our greatest ally." Cheers erupted across the planet. Human soldiers looked embarrassed, unused to such praise. Mira simply folded her arms and watched silently, her expression calm, but her eyes warm. But the galaxy was not silent. Across distant star systems, alien governments watched the Valari broadcast with wide eyes. They had expected the Valari to fall. They had expected the Draven to crush humanity's small fleet, but instead, they saw something unbelievable. A species they once ignored, a species born on a death world, a species they considered reckless and unpredictable, had defeated one of the galaxy's strongest empires. Whispers spread through political halls and war chambers. Humans are dangerous. Humans are brave. Humans protect the weak. Humans cannot be ignored anymore, for the first time in history. Humanity became a symbol of hope, not fear, not chaos, but hope. Later that evening, Captain Mira stood on a balcony overlooking the recovering city. The twin Valari moons reflected on the crystal rooftops below. Commander Reth stood beside her with a gentle smile. "You changed everything," he said quietly. "Not just for us, but for the whole galaxy." Mira shook her head. "We just did what humans do," she said. "When someone calls for help, we answer," before Reth could reply. Mira's wrist device beeped sharply, a new incoming message from her fleet. She tapped the screen. A hologram appeared, showing a distant star system blinking red. Another SOS signal, weak, fading, desperate. Reth exhaled softly, another world in danger. Mira nodded. She turned to her officers, gathering behind her on the balcony, her voice calm, steady. Filled with the weight of responsibility and the fire of her people, "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "We move at dawn." The Valari leaders gathered behind her as the human ships powered up again. Engines burning like newborn suns, their hulls still scarred, their weapons still hot, but their spirits stronger than ever. The little Valari girl waved from the street below, holding her glowing crystal toy. "Come back one day," she shouted. Mira smiled and nodded. "We will," she whispered. The final scene ignited the sky. The human fleet rose into the air, forming a shining spear against the dark clouds. Then, with a final flash of white light, they jumped into hyperspace, disappearing into the stars to answer another call. And across the galaxy, one truth echoed like a legendary promise. When the galaxy refuses to help, humanity comes. Asterisk, asterisk.